Pokémon Legends ZA, the second installment of the spin-off Pokémon Legends series, looks to reshape how old fans and newcomers alike think about Pokémon, with not only the return of a beloved mechanic in Mega Evolutions, but at the same time, an attempt at more engaging gameplay. Yo, what up? I'm Russ. Welcome back to the channel where I just talk about certain things that I've been playing. And in today's video, we're talking all about Pokémon Legends ZA, as well as the DLC that released, Mega Dimension. That is pretty much all I've been playing for like the past month and a half at the time of recording this, which is kind of interesting in and of itself because originally this game wasn't really on my radar all that much. I wasn't going to jump into it, but I don't know, something got me to change my mind about it. I don't know if it got the better of my curiosity or if I just really wanted to play my Switch again. Yes, my Switch 1. Yeah, that's right. This video is all about the Switch 1 version of Pokémon Legends ZA, simply because I don't have a Switch 2. I just haven't really been motivated to upgrade to it yet. And I feel like there are a lot of people out there in the same predicament, whether you just can't justify upgrading to a Switch 2 or it's just not financially responsible enough. Whatever the reason may be, if you're still stuck on Switch 1, what's the experience you can expect? And are you really even missing out on much? I'll also state that this video is coming from a single player perspective. There is a multiplayer aspect to this game. I didn't touch it, mainly because I just didn't think about it while I was playing. And also, I'm just not that much of a multiplayer gamer, at least competitively. So I'm sorry in advance for that if you were looking for some sort of analysis of the multiplayer. But with all that out of the way, let's get into Pokémon Legends ZA. So Pokémon Legends ZA is actually a direct sequel to the Pokémon X and Y games that were released way back in 2013. Taking place 5 years after those games, you are a traveling visitor to the city of Lumiose, and after stepping foot off the train, you are quickly introduced to the city with robbery. Sounds like home. Of course, as is tradition, you pick your partner Pokémon and proceed to punish theft and possible identity fraud in the only way that makes sense.
911, where's the emergency?
By sending monsters to smack each other in the face. In the events following, you learn and become a part of the Z to A Royale, a tournament to find the best trainers in the city by having them battle in ranked matches, like it's a round of online Street Fighter or better yet, Pokken tournament. However, that's not the only thing that's happening. Wild Pokemon have been posting up in the city recently, and in order to handle the situation, wild zones have been constructed all over to try and contain them, much to the glee or chagrin of the townspeople. Then, among these wild Pokemon, there's been a curious phenomenon happening called Rogue Mega Evolution, where said Pokemon are just mega evolving on the spot and causing problems in the city. And who has to stop them? This guy. I've been here 3 days. That's just for the setup of the story here without giving it all away. And all in all, the story's fine. I found it enjoyable enough to get through the game at least, but it's honestly kind of what I expect out of a Pokemon game. You know, with the exception of like Black and White and maybe even like XD or Coliseum or something. It's corny, it's childish, it's Pokemon. It does try to bring some nuance into the narrative by bringing into question how much is too much when catering to these wild Pokemon in civilian streets, some of which will still buck up if they so much as see you. But it doesn't really follow through on this plot thread, nor a couple others for that matter. Some things are introduced and never resolved, or just concluded off screen, at least to my knowledge. And I also question the decision to give me dialogue choices, if they're gonna give me the same answer, or it's just gonna end in the same result. It just feels like a waste of effort and the player's time, especially if you force me to go through all the decisions in the list for no apparent reason. Like, why? And then we gotta talk about the elephant in the room. We still have no voice acting, which that in and of itself isn't a bad thing, Except when you put so much effort into making all the cutscenes so cinematic and animated that the silence really sticks out. Even the highly animated dialogue just feels weird with nothing to accompany it. See how much better that is? Hell, you gave a grunting voice to the main character anyway. But that aside, it is nice to revisit this world and catch up with a few characters that we either left hanging or that we didn't even give a second thought to originally. And while it's not quite the Pokemon Z that we never got, it's a decent jump back through this region. All right, so the reason I put region in quotation marks is because you don't really explore the region. You're kind of just locked down to Lumio City and nothing else. You are stuck in this circle the entire time. And while it may be less than what came before in terms of scale, it isn't necessarily all that bad. Would it have been nice to explore areas outside the city? Yes, of course. But I do think they do a decent job of trying to fill out the city and keep it interesting throughout the duration of the game, because you will be scouring almost every inch of this city, from the sewers to the rooftops. And as you progress, more ways to navigate the city become available to you, whether it be new pathways, new moves to clear certain obstructions, or hidden doors. And for me, the progression of these things was paced out just well enough to keep the setting from being too boring. So the real appeal of this game is a new approach that is taken to Pokemon battling, as it's no longer a turn-based ordeal. Battles happen in real time with active movement and positioning. Sort of. But this isn't like a Pokken tournament situation where you have complete control of your Pokemon. No, you're still controlling the trainer and just barking orders at your Pokemon by locking onto a target and selecting from the quartets of moves you have available. Which brings me to another change. Moves don't have limited uses anymore. This time around, they've been retooled to work on a cooldown system, which in turn, I found brings a different angle to the timing strategy of battles. Sure, you may have a powerful, super effective move, but do you want to wait till that refills and possibly faint in the process? Or do you just get some more damage in with a less effective, weaker move, but it recharges faster? Do you want to start a powerful attack that takes forever to launch and risk it getting deflected? Or do you want to bait out the deflection with a quick hitting move, therefore leaving the opponent open? Those are just a couple of examples of decisions you have to make in a matter of seconds now, as opposed to contemplating them over the duration of a turn. And playing off the scenario I just described, moves like Protect don't just work anymore. They have to be accurately timed to get their full effectiveness. In that same vein, capturing Pokemon is a real-time endeavor as well. Aiming and throwing the Pokeball is completely in the hands of the player, whether that means capturing them head on, sneaking up on them, or knocking them out first. I find this whole system to be a welcome change to Pokemon battles, as I just feel a bit more involved as a player, and it's just amusing commanding my little partner all across the battlefield. Also, it's like the closest we've been to calling battles like the anime, and is something I hope they continue to improve on, because while being fun and engaging, it does have its fair share of issues. Since battles for the most part take place on like the same plane of existence as the exploration, quite often you can run into issues where elevation changes or objects are just in the way. This problem really shows itself when battling on rooftops, as yours or your opponent's Pokemon will just constantly fall off the roof as they're trying to fight each other, and moves just constantly miss. And this brings me to talk about the positioning and how it works in battle, because like I said, you're not in control of your Pokemon. You can't tell it to move or stand in a certain spot really whatsoever. No, the motherfucker just follows you wherever you go. And even if you send it to attack, it'll run up if it needs to, attack, and then retreat right back to you. The thing is attached to your hip like 90% of the time. So to dodge attacks means you have to effectively read them, not for yourself, because you can get hit too, but for the time it takes for your Pokemon to copy you in the movement you're doing, which is just too much to try and worry about in some of these battles. However, the biggest and most consistent problem I ran into would have to be the lock-on system. Too many times I hit the button well within range of the target and the game would just not lock on, which is a big problem because in this game, your Pokemon can't do anything without locking on. So in those moments, I just end up sitting there taking damage while the game isn't cooperating. For the love of God, when you lock on, thank you. Another issue pertaining to the lock-on comes in the form of moves where the Pokemon leaves the screen. You know, moves like fly or bounce or dig or whatever. If they leave the screen, well, you can't lock on to them, meaning you can't select the countermeasure, making moves like protect and detect completely useless as opposed to their turn-based implementation. Did we miss this somehow? If so, that's a weird oversight. Why is this a thing? If they continue with this system in future installments, there needs to be some way of selecting actions without the need of a target, because your Pokemon being a sitting duck, it just doesn't seem fair to the player. Now, of course, like most Pokemon games, as you battle, your Pokemon will gain experience and level up. But in an interesting twist, your Pokemon don't just evolve anymore. Instead, you have to actively make the choice to do so. As well as, moves are not permanent. Moves can be swapped in and out easily on the fly based on your needs, making it a lot easier to flip strategies and experiment when you come across a roadblock of some sort. But in addition to that, all the traditional Pokemon stuff is here. Held items, potions, berries, shops. We even got diverse Nurse Joys. Talk about progress.
Black, I'm black, my skin is so black, I'm rocking all black, everything is black.
So anyway, back to why you're doing all of this. The game works on a day and night cycle. And every night there are these battle zones where the city streets basically turn into the Wild West. Trainers are scattered across the streets and rooftops, waiting for a fight. And I gotta say, these are probably the most vigilant trainers ever to exist in a Pokemon game. These guys will see you from a mile away before you're even aware of their position. And getting caught actively starts you with a disadvantage in battle. Therefore, to avoid that, the active engaging trainers basically turns into a game of Metal Gear Solid. Hiding in bushes, behind objects, and around corners to get the preemptive strike is key to getting the most out of your night. Although why no one sees a giant Pokemon running up to smack the shit out of them is beyond me. But nevertheless, as you battle, you earn points towards a promotion match, and as the name implies, you go up in rank if you win these matches. This mechanic is your main sense of progression in this game, sort of like how the gyms are in most of the other mainline Pokemon games, as everything you do story-wise circles back to this. However, in addition, you'll also be asked to go around and quell these rogue Mega Evolved Pokemon from time to time in these raid-like boss battles. Now, I'm not gonna lie, some of these are quite cool. The way that some of these fight you is quite creative and makes you think more about the battle than just type advantage. Now, they're not the most complicated thing in the world. If anything, the hardest part about them is just the damage output some of these guys can do, because you have to avoid the attacks too. Otherwise, you, the player, can get knocked out as well. And this doesn't just pertain to rogue Pokemon. Wild Pokemon can f you up too if you aren't careful. And this brings me to point out the fact that enemy Pokemon seem to focus on you a lot. Despite the game saying that they will focus on your Pokemon that you send out instead, nah. It certainly doesn't feel that way. Now, like any other good Pokemon game, there's other stuff to do aside from the main quest line of just being the best. Much to my surprise, there are a metric ton of side quests in this game, bro, and they pretty much pop up after every main mission you complete. And furthermore, a number of them are quite fun and entertaining, and others provide a decent challenge with limiting or specific conditions. 53? Are you kidding me? I've been set up. Three at the same time. So the trainers just jumped now. What happened to the rules? She's not even out here no more. She knows how disrespectful. Oh my God. But you can soon start to see that some of these missions are part of like a longer quest line, to the point where you'll see a quest giver where you completed their mission early on, and then they have another one for you, and just be like, damn, not you again. But again, they're optional. You don't have to do them. However, by completing them, you do get some useful items, and Pokemon for that matter. Pokemon that are probably some favorites that you couldn't get until way later in the game. beyond the point of reasonably trying to train them. Now, with all that being said, I did find the sheer amount of them to really halt the pace of the game. If you're one that wants to do everything as it comes, it can slow down a lot because, like I said, new ones pop up after pretty much every main mission you do, not leaving you much time to like make some true story progression before you have to go and get sidetracked again. But that's a problem for the OCD gamers out there. Catching them all is still as prominent as ever, as capturing all the Pokemon in all of the wild zones nets you with different rewards as you reach certain thresholds. And character customization also makes a return and is much improved from what it has been in recent entries, mainline or otherwise, and it only gets better as you go through the game. Although me personally, I still felt the clothing options kind of lacked for my personal taste, but I am glad that I can finally get a hairstyle now that's closer to my real life self. Finally. The overall gameplay loop here I found to be fun, at least for the main game, but at the same time, I see how tedious and possibly frustrating it can be to get through. Like I said, the Battle Royale serves as the backdrop for this whole narrative, and if you don't stay ahead of the game on this point system they give you, you can find your story progress abruptly halted until you grind up enough points to get to the next rank that the game wants you to be at, and having to stop and grind is usually not a lot of fun. It's annoying at times, but it's not like you're having to grind for days on end. It's usually only a few minutes if you're efficient enough, and soon afterwards you'll be able to move forward. So like I mentioned at the start of this video, I played this on Switch 1, and you know, I was fine with it. The game doesn't look bad, and it's not like the performance is so bad that it's unplayable. Of course, compared to the Switch 2 version, you're not getting the 60 FPS. The image quality is obviously lower. Edges are more jagged and lighting can kind of look off. Pop-in is everywhere. And the loading is quite a bit longer from what I've seen. None of that really bothered me though. The game isn't that demanding in terms of player input that I felt the absolute need for a higher frame rate, although objects that are right in front of you moving at a different pace can kind of be off-putting. And while things aren't sharp, for the most part, they're animated very well. Attacks feel as powerful as they should. Larger scale battles have the chaos that should be associated with them due to all the effects going off. And I swear the Pokemon here are the closest to what feel like actual animals inhabiting an open world. Maybe aside from Pokemon Snap. It can definitely be said though that the textures of most things in general are just not up to snuff with what you come to expect from games at this time and this price point. Art style aside, if you just stop for a sec and look, there's quite a bit to be desired. From the flat cobblestone to the grass that is in some serious need of landscaping. The only real performance issue I had was the game seeming like it had froze, but it was just taking more time than usual to load everything after a mission I completed. Other than that though, I don't find that the visual shortcomings of the Switch version or the game in general take away from the core experience it's trying to present to you. The sounds like Pokemon, and I'm pretty sure most of you know what Pokemon sounds like by now. Need I say more? Lastly, I'll quickly talk about the Mega Dimension DLC. So this DLC takes place after the end of the main story and revolves around the appearance of these strange portals all over the city, including one big one hovering over Prism Tower. And with the help of newcomer Ansha and her Hoopa, you are able to enter these portals and explore Hyperspace Lumios, an alternate version of the Lumio city you've come to know, where the Pokemon are cracked beyond belief. Yo, why are these dudes so strong? What is happening? Oh my God. All right, this ain't my hood. I understand. I will leave expeditiously. Essentially, it is your job to investigate these dimensions in order to gather enough information to tackle the main one in the sky and protect our city. Man, f this place. Pretty simple premise, and is basically just an excuse for you to go find legendary Pokemon that don't belong here otherwise. That's all fine. But after going through the main game, which wasn't that high of a bar to begin with, if we're being honest, the story in this just wasn't enticing. It's very one note for a lot of it, and feels like it was literally just here to provide some context for what you're doing. Even the new and returning characters don't add much to the mix, as I lost interest in what was going on very, very quickly, and it never got me back. Now, as I mentioned, your primary goal is to enter these dimensions for research. And by research, I mean complete a bunch of menial tasks to fill another points bar. Yeah, they doubled down here essentially. In order to progress, you have to do basically the same thing in the main game all over again, but a lot worse in my opinion. For one, the tasks you have to complete are random and can be more involved than just beating stuff up. Second, you're on a time limit every time you're in hyperspace, even during the boss battles for some reason. Now, yes, in the base game, your time is also limited during the night where you will be earning all your points. But the key difference is that every battle earns you points, so you're not bound to get something done in the time frame. In the DLC, you have to complete a task in order to earn points, which you may not complete in time. Even the battle-centric dimensions are changed to where you need to win 3, 5, or 7 battles just to earn points. And if you don't complete the task in time, it's gone. You don't keep the progress. So it makes what already was somewhat of a grindy mechanic that much more time consuming. Now, to combat that, you can give yourself more time through the donut gimmick the DLC introduces. So in order to enter these dimensions in the first place, you have to make donuts for Hoopa to eat, and in turn, you're allowed to explore hyperspace for a certain amount of time. The better donuts you make, the more time you have, as well as the bigger boost your party gets to survive in there. The catch is, these premium donuts are necessary for the more difficult portals that appear, and naturally, you're gonna use your resources on those and not the smaller ones to get up to that point. So it kind of becomes this repetitive loop of making donuts, jumping into a portal, hoping the tasks are simple enough to complete in time to earn max points, succeeding or failing, hopping to another portal, doing the same thing, going back to make more donuts in case you run out, rinse and repeat. And after doing something similar for the entire base game, then jumping right into this, to come back and do it again but at what feels like a slower pace, it just became boring and made me want to stop. But that's not the only knock against this DLC. Is it just me, or did they break the combat system in this thing? Why is it when I select an attack, my Pokemon just run off in the other direction, around for 5 seconds, and then decide to launch an attack? Maybe. And it was with every one of my team members.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Where are you going? Where's my attack? Why the f are you all the way over there? I could not for the life of me figure out what was going on, and was another reason that made me want to stop playing it numerous times. Like, I don't know. I did not have a good time with this DLC. I wish I had more positive things to say about it, but my experience with it was not the greatest. Pokémon Legends EA is a good game, all things considered, even on Switch 1. Sticking with the base game, it proceeds to breathe some new air into the franchise by switching things up even more from what its predecessor did before, albeit on a more focused scope. The highlight is by far the Pokemon battles, which I found to be extremely fun the entire time. Even if you do one-shot a majority of trainers from the shadows, the strategy and timing from the turn-based system has translated extremely well to real-time combat, and battles are just so much closer to what myself and I feel like many others imagined as kids. Again, Pokken aside. The new megas allow for more Pokemon to be used that may have been forgotten or just undervalued, And with how easy it has been made to tweak your team of Pokemon, I felt more encouraged to experiment with them and strategies surrounding them as I went through the game. Again, yes, it would have been nice to explore more than just Lumio City. I'm in no way denying that. But at the same time, there's always something to do in it. So for me personally, the setting didn't get old for me. No, the game isn't the best looker, but it isn't bad. And it also runs with almost no hiccups in performance. So I think you have to ask yourself, how much of a Pokemon fan are you? And how open-minded are you to the franchise trying new things? If you are a fan of the franchise and were receptive to what was done in Pokemon Legends Arceus, then I think you'll find a lot of things to like about ZA. But is it worth it? If you have any interest in Pokemon at all or curious about it and the changes that this spinoff brings, then yeah, I think so. If not though, I don't think this game will really change how you feel about Pokemon, and I don't think I can confidently recommend it. It still looks, feels, and sounds like Pokemon, whether that be for better or for worse for you. If you can find it used, then maybe give it a look then. Now the DLC is a different story. This DLC feels like it's purely for hunting legendary Pokemon and Mega Evolutions. So unless you're into that, I don't think it's worth the time. You're essentially just playing the base game again, but less fun in my opinion. Any intrigue of the hyperspace dimension is held off for so much of the story that it loses its pull on you. And the donut making gimmick, I just found to be an annoying gatekeeper to the progression. So my recommendation is to just pass on the DLC unless you're just really trying to capture these legendary Pokemon and use them and see how they work in this game. Because that is an interesting thing, seeing how all these Pokemon that we love actually operate in this real-time combat system. Maybe that's enough to get you through, but otherwise, just save your money. And yeah, those are my thoughts on Pokemon Legends ZA. Are you going to pick it up, or have you already picked it up? And if you have, what did you think about it? What do you think about this DLC? Am I valid in some of my opinions here, or am I just talking crazy at this point? Let me know in the comments down below. I love reading them and seeing what you guys have to say about certain things. So thanks for making it to the end here. If you like this video and want to see more content like this, feel free to subscribe, like, and even share the video. Very much appreciated. And yeah, that's gonna do it for me. I'm Russ, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.